Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Saturday, July 5th, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. The weather in Riverside today is looking warm, with a high of 92.9 degrees Fahrenheit. The low will be 66.1 degrees, so enjoy those cooler evening temperatures. As we continue on Alex's News, we'll explore the significant hurdles faced when attempting a full chemical weapons investigation concerning Russia, a complex issue with many layers. Then, we'll turn our attention to a perplexing situation: how a fireworks warehouse managed to operate, seemingly for an extended period, without any local permits or proper authorization. All these stories and more are coming up next on Alex's News. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the program. We're starting off this morning with some truly alarming news from Europe. New intelligence reports suggest a significant and disturbing escalation in the conflict in Ukraine, specifically concerning the alleged use of banned chemical weapons by Russia. Joining us now to break down these developments is our senior reporter, Ethan. Ethan, this sounds like a very grave situation. What are Dutch and German intelligence agencies reporting?
Grace, it is indeed a chilling development. According to multiple news outlets, including ABC News, U.S. News and World Report, and the Daily Herald, all sourcing from the Associated Press, Dutch intelligence agencies, the MIVD and AIVD, alongside Germany's BND, have concluded that Russia's use of prohibited chemical weapons in Ukraine has become, quote, standardized and commonplace, end quote. This isn't just an isolated incident. Vice Admiral Peter Riesink, head of the MIVD, emphasized these are part of a, quote, large-scale program, end quote, almost standing operating procedure for Russian forces. The Dutch intelligence services have even observed Moscow increasing investment in its chemical weapons programs, expanding research, and recruiting new scientists.
Standardized and commonplace, those are strong words. Can you tell us what specific chemical agents they are reportedly using and how they're deploying them?
They've identified two main substances, Grace. One is chloropicrin, a World War I-era poison gas. The other is a riot control agent known as CS, often referred to as tear gas. The reports indicate that Russian forces are dropping these agents, reportedly via drones, sometimes even using improvised devices like chemical-filled light bulbs and bottles, directly into Ukrainian trenches. The tactic is quite brutal: force Ukrainian soldiers out of their defensive positions into the open, where they then become easy targets. It's worth noting, the U.S. State Department had already stated in 2024 that it recorded the use of chloropicrin against Ukrainian troops, a finding also reported by ABC News, U.S. News and World Report, and the Daily Herald.
So these aren't just one-off events, but seemingly a strategic part of their operations. How has the international community reacted to these allegations?
The reaction has been swift and strong. Dutch Defense Minister Ruben Brekelmans, as reported by ABC News, U.S. News and World Report, and the Daily Herald, expressed deep concerns about this normalization. He's called for more sanctions against Moscow and continued military support for Kyiv, emphasizing that normalizing chemical weapon use is, quote, not only dangerous for Ukraine, but also for the rest of Europe and the world, end quote. He's also urged Russia's exclusion from the Executive Council of the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, or OPCW. The European Commission has even proposed sanctioning 15 additional entities and individuals in response, though official confirmation of these specific sanctions was pending as of yesterday, according to sources like Militarny.com and Al Jazeera. The EU did adopt its 17th sanctions package 46 days ago, on May 20th, 2025, which included 3 Russian entities under its chemical weapons sanctions regime.
And what about Russia's response to these claims?
Russia has, predictably, denied using chemical weapons in the past, and a spokesperson for the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as reported by the Moscow Times and Al Jazeera, has reiterated that stance, instead accusing Ukraine of using such substances.
Russia is a signatory to the Chemical Weapons Convention, correct? What does that mean for these allegations?
That's right, Grace. Russia is a signatory to the Chemical Weapons Convention, or CWC, an international treaty that explicitly bans the development, production, stockpiling, and use of chemical weapons. Both chloropicrin and CS are indeed prohibited as weapons under this convention. Ukraine itself claims Russia has carried out 9,000 chemical weapons attacks since the full-scale invasion began in 2022, resulting in at least 3 confirmed deaths and over 2,500 soldiers reporting symptoms, according to the Kyiv Independent. The OPCW, the CWC's watchdog, has previously identified incidents involving CS in Ukraine, confirming its presence in samples, but their mandate in those cases was to determine presence, not attribute responsibility.
That brings us to the core of the issue, doesn't it? The difference between a riot control agent and a chemical weapon. It sounds like a fine line, but one with grave implications.
It's a critical legal distinction under the CWC, Grace, and one that's a source of debate. Article 1, Paragraph 5 states that nations, quote, undertake not to use riot control agents as a method of warfare, end quote. However, there's an exemption for, quote, law enforcement including domestic riot control purposes, end quote. A riot control agent is defined as a chemical producing temporary irritation or disabling effects. The ambiguity lies in what constitutes a, quote, method of warfare, end quote, versus, quote, law enforcement, end quote. Most states interpret the method of warfare prohibition as a near-total ban in armed conflict to prevent escalation. The United States, however, as reported by govinfo.gov and armscontrol.org, has a more nuanced interpretation, suggesting it doesn't prohibit their use in certain armed conflict situations not considered a method of warfare, like controlling riots in military detention facilities. But legal experts generally agree using these agents to clear out enemy soldiers from a trench is unequivocally a method of warfare. It's a chemical reaction designed to gain a tactical advantage.
So, despite all this, why hasn't the OPCW launched a full investigation that could formally attribute responsibility for these attacks?
It's complex, Grace, and there are significant hurdles, both political and practical. According to the Moscow Times, CBS News, and Al Jazeera, no formal request for a full investigation, known as a challenge inspection, has been received by the OPCW Secretariat. Politically, requesting a challenge inspection against Russia, a permanent member of the UN Security Council, is an unprecedented and politically perilous step. It risks severe diplomatic repercussions and potential Russian retaliation. The OPCW itself faces deep political divisions, and Russia, being on the Executive Council, could vote against such a request. There are also high procedural bars for a challenge inspection, requiring sufficient evidence to justify it. And practically, gathering definitive, attributable evidence in an active war zone is incredibly difficult. Investigators would need safe access to alleged attack sites, many of which are contested. The ephemeral nature of many chemical agents means collecting viable samples in time is a major challenge. Attributing the attack to a specific Russian unit also requires forensic analysis and witness testimony, which is hard to verify amidst conflict. While the Dutch and German intelligence reports are very weighty, they are intelligence assessments and may not meet the rigorous evidentiary standards for an OPCW investigation aimed at attributing responsibility.
Ethan, thank you for clarifying such a complex and grave situation. It sounds like a lot of hurdles stand in the way of any kind of resolution on this.
My pleasure, Grace.
That was Ethan, with that in-depth report on the escalating chemical weapons allegations. A very concerning story to start our morning. We'll be keeping a close eye on any further developments. Up next, we'll turn our attention to our second big story of the day. Stay with us. We turn now to a truly explosive story out of Northern California, where a catastrophic fireworks warehouse blast has left a community reeling. For the latest on this developing situation, we go to our reporter Chloe. Chloe, what can you tell us about this devastating incident?
Grace, it's a somber situation in Esparto, Yolo County, a rural community shaken on Tuesday, July 1st, just 4 days ago. A powerful explosion rocked the devastating pyrotechnics facility at around 5:50 p.m. According to CBS News, residents described the blast as feeling like an earthquake, with homes shaking and windows rattling. It was certainly an earth-shattering event.
What were the immediate effects of such a powerful explosion?
The aftermath was dramatic, Grace. CBS News reports the force sent a massive smoke plume 10,000 to 15,000 feet into the air. It ignited secondary explosions and multiple grass fires scorching about 80 acres. 2 people were injured, though no firefighters were hurt, according to CBS News and the New York Post. Power outages also occurred.
And the heartbreaking discovery of human remains. What do we know about that and those unaccounted for?
That's the tragic update, Grace. As of Friday, July 4th, yesterday, Yolo County coroner's personnel located human remains at the hazardous site. Recovery is ongoing. Authorities haven't confirmed numbers or made identifications. NBC News reports rapid DNA testing is anticipated due to hazardous conditions. 7 people were initially reported, quote, unaccounted for, end quote, according to CBS News, New York Post, and NBC News. Family members have identified 3 brothers, 18-year-old Jesus Ramos, 22-year-old Johnny Ramos, and 28-year-old Junior Melendez. The San Francisco Chronicle and capradio.org report Joel Melendez has a pregnant wife and child, while Jesus Ramos's girlfriend is also pregnant. Others identified include Carlos Javier Rodriguez, Angel Voller, and Neil Lee, the general manager.
A truly devastating list. This company, Devastating Pyrotechnics, what about its operations and licensing?
It has an ominous name, Grace. Devastating Pyrotechnics describes 30 years of experience in display fireworks. They hold active state licenses from the California State Fire Marshal, according to CBS News and the San Francisco Chronicle. Another company, Black Star Fireworks, is also licensed at the same Esparto address. However, the crucial detail: while they had state and federal licenses, the Esparto warehouse lacked required local permits to store fireworks or operate as a business at that location.
So, state and federal blessings, but not local ones. That sounds like a significant red flag.
It is, Grace. The Yolo County Planning Commission confirmed the property was zoned for, quote, agricultural intensive, end quote, use. No conditional use permit had been issued for commercial fireworks storage, making its presence a clear violation. Chief Daniel Berlant of the California State Fire Marshal called this lack of local permits a, quote, significant red flag, end quote, very important, end quote, as reported by the San Francisco Chronicle and capradio.org. State and federal licenses don't always trump local zoning laws.
And there are some interesting property connections?
Yes, Grace. According to CBS News and the San Francisco Chronicle, the property owner is Yolo County Sheriff's Lieutenant Sam Machado. Officials state he's not involved in the investigation. Craig Cutright, Black Star Fireworks owner and Devastating Pyrotechnics employee, was a volunteer firefighter. The San Francisco Chronicle and capradio.org also report Kenneth Chi, Devastating Pyrotechnics owner, was previously denied a federal explosives license due to a felony conviction.
What's the latest on the investigation into the cause?
The cause is still under active investigation, Grace. CAL FIRE leads the probe, with assistance from the Yolo County Sheriff's Office and Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. Investigators entered the property Thursday evening, using drones due to continued explosive materials. Experts suggest such incidents are often human error.
And the regulatory system? Is it common for companies to operate without all permits?
It points to a complex, multi-tiered regulatory system, Grace. Federal and state agencies issue licenses, but local jurisdictions retain critical authority for their own ordinances. Operating without local permits despite state and federal licenses is not legally permissible in California. The Esparto Fire Protection District was reportedly aware of fireworks stored there and conducted, quote, site visits, end quote, which raises questions about their role in enforcing local zoning and permit violations, as reported by fireengineering.com. This tragedy highlights the need for clearer enforcement between all levels of government.
Chloe, thank you for really breaking down this complex and tragic story. It sounds like there are many more answers to be uncovered. We appreciate your diligent reporting on this.
My pleasure, Grace.
In Kenya, a widespread movement is gaining traction. Citizens are putting President William Ruto on notice. Protests were initially sparked by a controversial finance bill. These protests have broadened into a national cry against corruption and state-sponsored violence. The bill included a now-scrapped tax on bread. This was seen as a betrayal of Ruto's campaign promise. He had promised to champion the everyday hustler. Some proposals were dropped. However, the core of the bill passed. Citizens say they simply cannot afford it. The demonstrations are led by a surprisingly organized Generation Z movement. They have been met with a violent crackdown. This has led to multiple deaths and international condemnation. Protesters say the government is not only taxing their income, they are also taxing their patience. Meanwhile, in Mexico City, the welcome mat for tourists has been pulled up. In some cases, it has been thrown through a window. Protests against mass tourism and gentrification turned violent. Demonstrators smashed storefronts and harassed foreigners. This occurred in trendy neighborhoods like Roma and Condesa. Residents say the influx of so-called digital nomads, particularly from the United States, has caused rental prices to skyrocket. This is pricing them out of their own city. Banners highlight the growing resentment. They read, "Gringos, stop stealing our home." Locals feel the city's character is being erased by short-term rentals and foreign investment. This echoes similar frustrations seen in European capitals. A new United Nations report is making serious allegations against Rwanda. It accuses the nation of fueling the conflict in the neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo. The confidential report claims Rwanda provides critical support to the M23 rebels. This support includes advanced drones and jamming systems. It also alleges Rwanda is plundering Congo's natural resources. The smuggling of coltan, a mineral vital for smartphones, is reaching unprecedented levels. The report suggests these conflict minerals are laundered in Rwanda before being exported. This helps to fund the insurgency. The Rwandan government has fiercely denied the claims. They cite their own long-standing security concerns in the region. And finally, it seems the price is no longer right in China's electric vehicle market. Beijing is signaling it will put the brakes on a debilitating price war. This 4-year-long war has driven most of the country's 129 EV brands into unprofitability. The intense competition has been described as a race to the bottom. It has left warehouses overflowing with millions of unsold cars. Market leader BYD has seen record sales. However, its aggressive price cuts have drawn criticism. They are threatening the entire industry's stability. In response, the government is intervening to cool the market. This starts with a pledge from major automakers. They will ensure timely payments to their struggling suppliers. The government hopes to steer the industry away from a major crash. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 4.0, Gemini Pro 2.5, Gemini Flash 2.5, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.